Hey, welcome to the fourth and second take of the fourth episode of the recovery scene. I'm actually recording this time. I have Sam Lindley with me, who is wicked sober. He is coming to us from Boston, Massachusetts, and he is going to tell us his adventures with addiction and moving into recovery. Just a reminder, if you're sitting in your family room with your 8-year-old, this might not be, the channel for them. It could trigger some people depending on what stories are told, because addiction is not pretty. There might be cussing, so just a warning right there for everybody. So get the kids out of the room. If you don't, it's not my fault. Whatever happens to your children in the future. Actually, maybe they'll learn something. So anyway, I'm going to pass it over to Sam again. At least I got your last name right this time around.
Yeah, hey, second time's the charm.
Exactly.
Well, I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic and addict, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Basically, drinking and drugging started at 12, 13, just an awkward middle school kid trying to fit in and be part of the cool crowd, whatever that means. And it was definitely like growing up, like came from a good home. Parents are still together, very loving, nurturing household, but I never felt a part of, or like I never felt comfortable in my own skin, like that classic alcoholic feeling of like, I don't belong here. And felt like I was always putting on a mask everywhere I went.
I like how you called yourself the closet nerd.
Yeah, definitely like a closet nerd. Like I didn't want people to know that I was super into like anime and superhero movies and comic books and stuff like that.
And now that's all cool.
Yeah, now it's cool. Things I used to get bullied for in high school are now cool. Like I remember Thrasher shirts. Like I've always been a skateboard BMX rider, and I would wear Thrasher shirts to high school, and people would make fun of me. They're like, "Why are you wearing a skateboard magazine T-shirt?"
Right.
And now it's the coolest shirt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, sick. It's great. Like more people reading Thrasher, I'm all for it. But
right.
I walk so y'all could run.
Right, exactly.
But so like awkward throughout my teens, and then always a big athlete playing hockey. Played since I was 5 up until my sophomore year of high school, and then I had gotten too many concussions to legally play in Massachusetts. So it kind of put an end to that, which was unfortunate because that was, to be honest, that was the first thing I was
I'm sorry, I got a tickle in my throat.
Oh, no worries. That was the first thing I was addicted to. Hockey was definitely like the way I describe it. Like my mom's in recovery as well. And I was like, is there a significant moment? So basically like my mom's in recovery as well. And I had asked her a couple years ago, when did you know that I was like alcoholic or addict? She's like, what other 10-year-old boy do you know shoots 500 pucks at the garage door, forehand and backhand? Like it was my first addiction. It was like everything in my life, I either do 0% or 110. There's no in between.
Right. Right. And what he hasn't mentioned this time is Boston or Massachusetts has a 4 concussion rule.
Yes.
So 4. After 4,
after 4, I had to stop. So I thought the only right choice was why don't I pick up with the BMX riding? That's not at all. And that had become very pivotal in my life, because that was the first time like BMX had gotten me out of my hometown. Mm-hmm. And got me away from that sort of like bubble of my parents and like friends' parents. Like I could go travel. It was like when I first started driving, it was like I was going to Lowell and visiting friends. And that's where my using started to pick up, like smoking weed, drinking. It was like the main objective was to go and ride bikes, but it was like ride bikes till it's dark and then party all night and then show up Sunday morning at my parents' house like nothing had happened.
Right.
When in reality, it was like I was incredibly hungover, like had to pull over 8 times in a 20-minute drive to throw up. Like It was just complete and utter chaos. but still didn't want to admit that I had a problem. I thought I was just like, we were just a couple kids partying. And like, that's what happens. You get hungover after you drink. Like, everybody's blacking out. But that was not the case. And so it was continued doing that all throughout high school. Very much still the chameleon, like jumping friend group to friend group. And at 18 was sort of faced with a choice. Do I continue trying to do this BMX stuff or go to college?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a long conversation with my parents because, I mean, as an 18, well, I was probably 17 at the time, 17-year-old drug addict and alcoholic. I was like, I want this party to last forever. I want to go ride BMX with my friends, move to California, and
Right.
like live the dream. And by living the dream, I mean like sleeping on some random pro BMX rider's couch and probably getting some part-time job doing something I wouldn't enjoy, but getting to ride BMX, or go give college a shot. And so after a long conversation with my parents, I decided to go to High Point University in North Carolina. And that's where things just, the downward spiral really started.
Sails Unchained.
It was like the first time that I was like really away from my parents for a significant amount of time. This wasn't just the weekends anymore. This was
Right.
like I could just go balls to the wall crazy.
The odds of a surprise visit were pretty small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if they were going to surprise visit, they were flying down, and I would probably know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically got there, instantly didn't feel like I fit in. It was a very preppy, affluent school, and I was this lanky skater boy from Boston, and it was very apparent to me very quickly that I was not popular. They did not enjoy my Boston humor. They did not enjoy the masshole facade that I was trying to put on.
Right.
I'll put it that way. But so it was a lot of drinking in my room by myself, and then eventually, like probably, I want to say like within the first week or the first 2 weeks, I was introduced to cocaine, and that was.
I like the way you said it when we were talking before and said, hey, have you ever tried cocaine?
Yeah.
No, but sign me up.
Yeah, it was.
I'm in. Don't know what it is, but I'm in.
Yeah. It was essentially just like casual. It was like casually thrown out there. He was just like, hey, you want to try it? And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And I was justifying it because it was just a weekend thing. And I mean, I was drinking alcoholically, like no doubt waking up every day, drinking a fifth of vodka before I was like doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But wanted to put on this facade that everything was okay. It was, no one was really questioning me because no one was really seeing the cocaine and how it was progressing. And then eventually I realized that cocaine is very expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and crack makes you feel the same way.
Yeah.
So
Budget.
maybe even elevated. But it was this, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was like a Wednesday afternoon, and I went to my cocaine dealer's house, and I was like, hey man, I don't have enough. And he's like, well, I have crack. And I was like, it was like, let's try it. Why not?
Right.
And I remember like having this thought in my head, like before I had tried cocaine or any other, like, because I was experimenting with other drugs
Right.
in this time period. And I remember it was like, oh, well, I'll never do like the big three. Like I'll never do crack, meth, or heroin. Because like, especially heroin, because I knew like even at 18 that like heroin was like, even from a very young age, I knew heroin was like the big.
Right. Like taking on the boss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was the final boss.
Yep.
And so I was like, I'm never going to do any of those three. And then it was like, okay, well, I tried crack. And then it was like, meth was offered to me. And it was like, boom, there we go. Let's try that. And I basically, like, how I would describe my addiction is the drugs that I liked were mine, yours, and more.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Is I didn't really care what it was. If it got me out of myself, I was willing to try it.
Yeah, my drug of choice, alcohol was my main thing, but my drug of choice was what do you got?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Same here. It's like alcohol was definitely like my, it's like weird to say like my first love, but like that's sort of how I describe it, is because it was a very intense bond with alcohol. I mean, from age 13 to 18.
Hmm.
And so the progression of all this, like getting into harder drugs, all the classic like drug addict behavior came along with it, like robbing, stealing, cheating, all that. I'll sort of leave it at that. I mean, it got pretty bad, and I got mixed up with some bad people.
Yeah.
Did some things that I'm not proud of, and still working on till this day with my sponsor. But
A lot of us have those.
yeah,
Every single one of us. I mean, I don't care how mild your drug
yeah,
addiction
exactly.
was. Everybody did something that they're like, oh God,
Yeah,
we're either still literally paying for it today, emotionally paying for it, mentally paying for it, physically paying for it, you know, working
yeah,
on a lot. Yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty common.
definitely. So I mean that had progressed, and my roommate at the time had basically looked at me and he was like, "Dude, you can't stay here. I'm gonna have to tell on you because like I mean, he very I won't name him um, because I have a living amends with him,
Hmm.
but very sweet kid, and I was the roommate from hell, and it was basically like, dude, you can't. So it was buy a tent, and he's like, you can come back to shower and go to class. So I was only coming back to shower because I didn't have time to go to class. I had to go get money so I could go pick up. And that was all that I was thinking about. And after a week living in the tent, I realized that I'm not a very good homeless person. Is I was not enjoying living on the side of the road in North Carolina, and my depression was horrific at this time, and just all my mental health, my anxiety, I was freaking out all the time, having panic attacks, and I realized I couldn't live like this. And I realized I sort of had two options. I could either go to the hospital and try to get some help, or try to kill myself.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to live in a world where I woke up every day. My first thought was, am I going to get high? Or how am I going to get high today, rather?
Yeah.
And so October 14th, 2015, I tried to take my own life. And by the grace of God, I ended up in the hospital. Basically, had taken every drug that I had, and walking into the hospital, like I had like my bottom story is essentially I was in the tent. I'd never done heroin, and I had the heroin needle pulled back,
Hmm.
ready to shoot it. And this song came on. It was "Sunshine" by Atmosphere. I'll never forget it. And I have no idea why, but I pulled that needle out of my arm and I went to the hospital.
Mm.
And I got there and I could barely speak, but I was like, I am a danger to myself and others, and I need some psych help. And so what I had failed to mention is I'd gone back to my school, and I was in my dorm room, and I had called my mom and I was like, listen, I'm gonna try to kill myself. And she's like, hold up, called the school. Two giant security dudes come to my room and they're like, we're gonna take you to the hospital. So show up at the hospital. I can barely speak. They're speaking for me.
Hmm.
Psych eval. Doctor walks in and he looks at me and he goes, son, do you believe in God? And at that time, I was a very hardcore atheist. I look at him and I go, no. And he goes, well, you should, because you should be dead right now.
Hmm.
And honest to God, that was a moment in my life where I realized that there was something greater than myself. It
Power.
was like such a powerful moment
Power.
that like on paper, I should be dead,
Mhm.
even now. And so my mom had known that I was going to the hospital. She flew down from Boston, and a moment that I will remember till the day I die, there was this 2x2 window, and it was like the only window in that psych ward. And I could see my mom on the other side of the window, and it wasn't a look of anger or sadness. It was fear.
Mhm.
And to the day I die, I don't want to ever see that look on my mother's face. It absolutely killed me. And
As a mother, I can completely relate. I couldn't, and then I had my own kids and I thought, oh God, the things I put that woman through.
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, no. I mean, I don't have any children, but it's definitely something that I couldn't even imagine.
Hmm.
And especially like her knowledge from being a person in recovery, I think there was this weird understanding, but it was like also like it's your baby, like you're
Hmm.
scared.
Yep.
So get discharged from the psych ward, and this is the funny side to this story. So I get in the car, and I'm not going to say what fellowship it is, but my mother pulls out a book from a
Mhm.
12-step fellowship. She hits me inside the head with it and says, "Read the fucking book." And that was the start of my journey. Um, so
Did
I
he detox you while you were in there? How long were you in the psych ward?
only a night.
Ah,
So
okay.
they
You had to
did.
go through the fun of the withdrawals.
Oh,
Side.
that's a fun. Wait for this fun story. So my I get out and we fly back to Massachusetts, and I look at my mom like, I need to go to rehab. I think that'd be a good idea. And she was like, for sure. At this point, I hadn't been completely honest with my mother about my drug use. Like I was like, hey, I'm an alcoholic, but to her knowledge, I had only done cocaine.
Hmm.
And so there was like a 3-day window between me going to treatment and me getting back to Massachusetts. And my grandfather was celebrating. I believe I want to say it was like his 30th year sober, and so we drove up to Vermont. And because I hadn't been honest to my mother, I kicked on my grandparents' floor in the middle of October in Vermont, and I can safely say I do not wish that on anybody. It was horrible. But
Sure is.
3 3 days later, I'm on Cape Cod in a treatment facility, only 18-year-old there, and terrified, trying to
Mhm.
put on this persona like I'm Billy Badass. When inside, I'm 110 pounds soaking wet, haven't slept in like 4 or 5 days, and trying to just put on this facade that I was like, I wanted to be the baddest motherfucker in rehab. I don't know why. I don't know why that mattered to me, but it was like, I'm going to be the toughest guy in here. When in reality, I was terrified and I was a beanpole.
Mhm.
So I was there for a month, and then I went to like sort of a halfway house type deal for another month, and then Christmas Eve I was out. And basically my mother looked at me and she goes, I love you dearly, but I think that if you live here in early sobriety, you're not going to listen to me. So you're going to move in with your uncle in Vermont. And I was pissed because I had it lined up. So like I was going to go home for Christmas, and then I was going to go to the sober house with all my boys from Cape Cod, and we were all
Mhm.
going to be in a sober house. And it was like the guys I've been with for the past 2 months. And I was like, this is going to be sick. We all got sober together. And my mom sort of scooped me up on Christmas Eve, and she's like, you're going to Vermont. And I tried to find out, I'm like, I'm an adult, I can make my decisions. So she's like, look where your decisions got you.
Mhm.
So begrudgingly, I moved to Vermont and moved in with my uncle. I love my uncle to death. I can't thank that man enough for what he did for me. But so 18 years old, pissed off, middle of winter, Vermont.
They're skiing.
I was angry as hell. And my first sort of 12-step like experience was with my uncle and his friends, who are awesome people, still great friends with them to this day. But there was no one that looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was convinced that all 12-step fellowships were old guys smoking cigarettes outside of a church. And it was really tough those first couple months, because it was the first time that, like, saying I got dropped off my head in Vermont is a bit of an overstatement, but it was like my uncle was stricter than a sober house. It was like, this is when you're home, you're working 40 hours a week. I don't care what the job is, you're going to bust your ass doing it. And these are my rules. And if you don't like these rules, street's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. So lived with him for 3 months. It was both the best experience and the worst experience ever. The amends I had to make for that took a while, because I was a raging asshole when I lived with him. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, I put him and my cousin through hell just because I was stubborn and hated being there. And I remember telling my therapist at the time, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be here 3 months, and then I'm never coming back. I was there for 3 years. I'd moved out of my uncle's house, moved into a sober house, developed a network, found people that looked like me, and it was great. I absolutely loved it. Made a bunch of great friends, got back into music, and then it was just living up there. It was great, but I knew there was something more for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I love Vermont. Like, I would live there. I would live, if I could live anywhere in the world, I'd live in Burlington, Vermont. It's my favorite place I've ever lived. But
Well, that's one place I've never been.
oh, you got to check out Burlington, Vermont. It's awesome.
Cool.
Made a bunch of great friends, loved it, but I wanted to work in the recovery field, and unfortunately, there's not too much up there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place called Maplefield, or not Maplefield, can't remember. There was one treatment facility up there. It closed, unfortunately. There's one in southern Vermont, but that would be like a 2-hour commute to work.
Wow, yeah.
So I started looking for jobs near where my sponsor lived in Massachusetts. And I found one in Nashua, New Hampshire. Interviewed for the job, went great, started working for the company. Nothing bad to say about the company. We just didn't see eye to eye on some things, and I left that job.
Mm-hmm.
And so still currently living in Nashua, New Hampshire, but at home with my folks and my sister for the holidays. Extremely, extremely grateful that my family has backed me 100% throughout all of this.
Yeah, a support system is huge. Huge. I mean, people don't realize when people come to me and talk about, I have a problem, what do I do? The first thing you have to do is, if you've got a supportive, loving family, you have to tell them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can if you want to survive and you want to get sober. Embarrassment and all that has to go out the window. This is life or death.
Yeah. It basically, like, when I walked in to recovery, it was essentially like, they say take the suggestions, and I was like, if you tell me I got to go in the corner and stand on my head and quack like a duck to stay sober, I was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no ifs, ands, or but about it. It was, I knew I had a problem, and I knew that there was a solution because I've seen it work in my family. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was like right away, like I surrendered and I was like ready to do it.
Right,
I wasn't gung ho about like, let's do steps. And it definitely took me a little bit to come around, but it was the hardest and greatest decision I've ever made in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Do not regret any part of my past. There are some things that I definitely still need to work on, but I mean, I think being sober, and especially being sober young, it has been a very strange journey the last 5 years. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. I would say I wish I would have been younger. The people who come in at 18, 19, 20 years old, to me, are the smartest people in the room. I remember being at a meeting and I could hear the snickers because it was these couple of teenage kids and they were in there for smoking pot. You hear the snickers, right, at this meeting. And so when it was my turn to share, I looked at them and I said, I'll tell you what, you're the smartest people in this room. Because I'm telling you right now, all these people in here wish they'd have stopped at smoking pot. So to me, they're the geniuses in the place, you know?
It was definitely one of those things where it was like, I definitely could have gone. Like, there's no doubt about it. But I definitely I would be lucky to have ended up in jail. I would most likely be dead. Because the unfortunate part of this disease is I've lost a ton of friends to this. And it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. And I think it's a big, it's not just like inner city communities. It's affecting everybody.
Dogs don't care where you come from, how much money you have, what your gender is, you know, how educated you are.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. Somebody said, and I love this, I say it all the time, there are no nevers, there are only not yets.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Although I have lost a lot of friends, I've formed a bunch of beautiful relationships in sobriety. And I think the friends that I have today are the kind of friends you could call at 3 a.m. and be like, hey, I need your help.
Yep.
And at your front step.
Right.
And it's like, I may not have as many friends as when I did in high school, like being that chameleon and sort of, but the friends I have today, like when I tell my friends I love them, I genuinely mean it.
Right.
And they tell me that they love me, like I know they mean it.
Right.
Like the person who I am today is who I am and who I truly want to be. And I think I think growing up sort of like from teenage years to adulthood in sobriety taught me was trying to think how to phrase it, like was the best lessons that I could have learned. Like it has shaped me into the young man that I am today.
Yeah. Somebody that I interviewed said something along the lines of, if you haven't experienced, you know, the lows and the pain of addiction, you don't understand their zest for life.
Yeah. It's like people like my friends who aren't in recovery, they're like, dude, why are you always so positive all the time? Like, not like trying to like knock me down or anything.
Right. But like, how do you do that?
You're just a genuinely happy guy. I'm like, dude, every day is a gift. Statistically, I should be dead. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And every day that I get to wake up sober is a gift. And I mean, if I continue to do the stuff that I need to do and keep waking up sober, life's only going to get better.
Right.
And it's like the things I've been able to do in sobriety are absolutely insane. It's like getting back into music, like my sponsors in a band, and just like, I mean, pre-COVID, getting to go and see bands that I've wanted to see my whole life.
Right.
And just being able to do things like truly forming like relationships with not only friends, but like genuine connections with my family. Is like middle school, high school, it was like, don't get me wrong, like love mom and dad and my sister, but like there wasn't any let's go hang out and do this, or
hey,
you want to watch a movie.
Now it's like precious.
And now it's like something I look forward to.
Yes. So my mom is going to be 80 on the 24th, and she's kind of like, go away.
Yeah, no, it definitely, I think there's some weird part of me that like wants to make up for lost time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's especially with my younger sister, who's about to turn 22 on the 16th. And I think I didn't realize how hard it was on her. And I think that's something that really hurts me.
Were you guys close when you were little?
No. I
Okay.
mean, we were the siblings who would fight all the time.
Got it.
And now it's like, since I've been home, since Thanksgiving, it's like we're hanging out, we're doing stuff together. And it's like, wow, my little sister is actually kind of cool. And I think also like realizing that my parents are cool was like a
Uh-huh.
weird moment where it's like, wow, my dad and my mom really introduced me to like some really cool stuff growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of my interests come from my parents. And I think realizing that has been just, there's so many things I could say that are just such a gift of sobriety.
Yeah. Yeah, the list goes on. I know. I
Yeah.
know.
And I think if the greatest thing about it, I think I'll leave it at this, is no matter where I am in the world, I walk into a room of recovery. I may not know you. You don't know me. But I know what you've been through and you know what I've been through, and I love you no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Sam, this is a really powerful story.
Thank
Your
you.
story is a very powerful story. And I think, especially for, the younger generation, because like you said, you can have a bunch of people my age talking about, because what I went through is not what you went through. Like meth was not really a thing until I was already out,
Yeah.
and then it became more popular. And so there's stuff that I can't relate to and these older guys can't relate to. But like you said, no matter what it was, we all know what you went through.
Exactly.
It might not be the exact same story, but it's, the feelings are the same, and the drugs are drugs.
Yeah. Drug is
They're going to take you down
drug.
the same road. That's
Yeah.
why it's like, well, I didn't do this, I only did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
No, no, it's going to lead you to all roads lead to the same destination
Yep.
as far as addiction.
Yep. It doesn't matter. It's like the thing I never understood is, especially like when I was in earlier sobrieties, I would always compare to these people. I'd be like, they don't know what it's like. And then like taking a step back and being like, wait, no, how they describe their bottom is how I describe my bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that gut feeling.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it was 1976 or, today.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think that's the cool part about it, is like a lot of the genuine friendships I formed, especially when I was living in Vermont, are with older people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, although they don't, like, on paper, an 18-year-old guy and a 70-year-old guy shouldn't have anything in common. And it's like, we did,
Yep.
except we were sober.
Yep.
And it was like one of my best friends I made up there. And it's just a great thing when I can walk into a room and it's like, I could give a flying fuck what your political view is, who you're dating, what you do with your life,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. We're here for the same reason.
Right. Right.
And I will go to the end of the earth to help you, and I know you'll do the same for me.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's really awesome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the recovery scene. This was really, really good. People are going to really relate to this, and I think it's going to help somebody.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome.